bring in Scott Ritter. How are you doing, sir? Welcome back to RBN.
Well, thank you very much. I'm doing well.
As an old pal that's always on here, and which you are, but there's for some people that may not know who you are. You're a former UN weapons inspector, former USMC intelligence officer, and you're also an author. And analyst is what I would add in there too. So that's the proper introduction for those of you that might want to Google him and just look up Scott Ritter. He's all everywhere though. I saw the stream also with Danny Hyphen. You're always on with Garland Nixon. Like you just banger after banger. We always talking about that. But we want to just start with the main topic, which is Iran. And just give us your overall sort of reaction before we get into some of the receipts. And I know, Nick, you might have some of the ones from the first stream. Yeah, and we'll do that too.
I have plenty, but go ahead, brother.
Reaction, I'll pass to you, Nick. But what's your just initial overall sort of general reaction to what has transpired in the last 24 to 48 hours?
Well, the first thing I'll approach it from the perspective of the average American citizen. Wherever you stand on this issue, whether you're pro-Israeli or anti-Israeli or whatever, understand this. Iran, because of the maturity of its actions, has saved your economic life. That had this gone a different direction, oil prices would be up over $120 a barrel right now. Gas prices would be punching through $6, $7, heading to $10. Diesel would be unavailable, and the American economy would shut down. So as bad as things are right now economically, they would become 10 times worse. And just to remind you, not to get on the beat up Joe Biden bandwagon, but this is a man who has reduced the strategic oil reserves of the United States to less than 17 days. That's barely 2.5 weeks. So if this thing had gone bad, if this had become a general war with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz was shut down, Middle East oil production was taken off the market, the United States, after 17.5 days, would not have oil. And that would lead to the total collapse of the American economy. So we are where we're at today with people analyzing what happened on April 14th. But the fact that we're still talking that oil prices are normal is because Iran took a very mature approach to this problem. Iran had to establish what we call deterrence superiority over Israel when it comes to protecting Iran's interests. Israel was operating under the belief that it could do anything it wanted to do and not pay a consequence. Israel was operating under the belief that it had deterrence supremacy. And what deterrence supremacy is, the notion that if anybody does something against you, the pain you will deliver will be so great that it will far outweigh any benefit they thought they might get by doing something. Let's put it in other terms. Let's say I had Mike Tyson and I could project him anywhere I wanted to. And anytime you did something bad against me, I would project Mike Tyson in your face where he would deliver, 3 hooks, 2 uppercuts, and a couple jabs, and you'd be on the ground spitting teeth. And you knew that every time you did something against me, Mike Tyson would show up and beat the dog. I got somebody at the door right now.
You're riling the dogs up.
So I'll tell you what, I'm going to turn it over to you for 2 seconds because this guy's not going away unless I answer the door.
That's okay.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let you take care of this because I have a few things I want to show you guys, and then I'll pass it to Scott when he gets back. The reaction from the West, because what Iran did was highly successful. Do not let the media twist it. The Zionist media, the Zionist controlled media, have been in shambles. What Iran did was apply effective deterrence, as Scott Ritter said. This is why you hear a lot of countries in the West that was declaring that Iran can't do anything in retaliation. Why are they doing that? It's more malicious than you think. They're trying to destroy any deterrence against Israeli aggression, meaning Israel can do whatever they want without any retaliation. That is the status quo that they are trying to send. Now, I actually didn't give Iran enough credit. I didn't give them enough credit. I was like, oh, we're all fucked. That's me not giving them enough credit. I said it many times before. I should have learned from my own shows. I've been impressed with the restraint shown from Iran. Because if Iran was ran by anyone with the same temperament of Western leaders, we would have been in global war. Now, I want you to react to this since I'm gonna pull this up here. You have David Cameron. I'm gonna pull this up to show you guys the hypocrisy of the West. And I'm also going to show you guys this fail. I'm going to show you guys after I pass this Scott Ritter, where Israel's like mocking Iran for not killing civilians during the strike. No, because they're not monsters like you guys are. But I don't want to bury that part yet. Listen to David Cameron and the Western hypocrisy regarding the strike. And I want you to respond to this, and we pass it back to you, Scott.
A reckless and dangerous thing for Iran to have done. And I think the whole world can see all these countries that have somehow wondered, well, what is the true nature of Iran? It's there in black and white.
What would Britain do if a hostile nation flattened one of our consulates?
Well, we would take the very strong action.
That's the West in a nutshell. Scott, what's your reaction? You can finish your thought that you was making as well.
Well, I mean, I think this is the perfect clip to show the hypocrisy of the West. But again, it's the arrogance that we have an inherent right for what we call deterrence supremacy, that we have a right to make the world fear our reaction and therefore to intimidate the world into allowing us to do that which we would never allow them to do against us or against our interests. And this is what Iran was confronting. Now, a lot of people misconstrued Iran's restraint as a sign of weakness. But let's put it in perspective. Why wouldn't Iran want to undertake an action that would lead to a devastating war with the West? Because to understand, in order for Iran to shut down oil production, they're hurting themselves. They're literally, slitting their own wrists. So it's not an outcome that's going to be good for Iran, a general war. It's an outcome that Iran may have to do and have to threaten to prevent people from attacking it, but Iran doesn't want to take that. Why not? One, Iran's goal and objective is not to be at war with the world. Iran's goal and objective is to have peaceful co-prosperity with its neighbors. This is why Iran has made peace with Saudi Arabia, the famous Chinese intervention to normalize relations between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The last thing the United States wanted, because our policy is to create conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran, but China showed that diplomacy is better than militarism, and the two nations started to make peace. How does that peace manifest itself? Iran is a member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Saudi Arabia is not. But Iran and Saudi Arabia have both joined BRICS, the BRICS Forum, which is an economic-oriented forum that's taking on an even broader role. This BRICS summit that's going to take place in Kazan, Russia in October I think is going to be one of the most important meetings of the century so far, insofar as it is going to define a course for this transformation that's taking place away from American-dominated hegemony to a multipolar. And Iran and Saudi Arabia are going to be a part of that. Why would Iran throw this all away? After decades of being sanctioned by the United States, their economy being strangled, Iran finally has the chance to turn things around and make life good for its people. And I know in the West, we're told that the theocracy doesn't care about the people. It's a brutal theocracy. That's just not true. The theocracy cares very much about the Iranian people and wants to do well by the Iranian people, wants to do right by the Iranian people. And the best way they can do that right now is to improve the economic prospects for Iran, which means they need to engage with the world economically in an environment that maximizes Iran's economic potential. And that economic potential is not maximized when you're at war with your neighbors. So Iran doesn't want a war. Iran doesn't need a war. It's not pushing for a war. It's a lie to suggest otherwise, as David Cameron has done. The other thing is, when it comes to Israel, Iran has absorbed a great number of blows from Israel over the years. Israel has assassinated Iranian nuclear scientists in Iran. Israel has carried out covert action that has destroyed critical Iranian infrastructure. And Israel has been bombing Iranian interests, killing Iranian soldiers and diplomats in Lebanon and Syria and Iraq for years. Why has Iran allowed this to happen? Because Iran takes a look at the strategic picture and says, but we're winning. We're winning. We're prevailing. The axis of resistance is not only on the right side of history, but we're on the right side of the equation. And this has become even more so after October 7th. The decline of Israel has been rapid since October 7th. The Israeli military has been shown not to be this invincible power, but to be a power that can be defeated and is being defeated by Hamas on the battlefield, by Hezbollah up north. The Israeli economy has been shown to be very fragile. The impact of Ansarallah, of the Houthi, on shutting down shipping lanes, and that has destroyed the economy. And from a morality perspective, Israel committing genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza has turned the world against Israel in a way that the world has never been turned against Israel, to the point that even the United States had felt compelled, for a variety of reasons, to abstain from a United Nations Security Council resolution that was critical of Israel. That doesn't happen, but it's happening now. So why would Iran want to disrupt this strategic victory? They've been willing to absorb so many blows. Why would they do this? Because Israel crossed a huge red line in striking the consulate in Damascus. It's diplomatically protected. It's Iranian soil. And if Iran had absorbed this blow as well to continue on, it would have just empowered Israel to take on even bolder steps, up to and including attacking Iran proper. Iran had to nip this in the bud. Iran had to establish what we would call deterrence superiority. That is, to turn to the Israelis and say, let's redefine this equation. If you attack us, we are going to put Mike Tyson in front of you, and he's going to pound the hell out of your face. All right? Now, how do you prove that to them? Now, if they actually put Mike Tyson in front of him and had him beat him up, people would say, well, that's too much. We're going to come to the assistance of Israel. Then Israel's right to hire, Merriweather to come in and beat up Mike Tyson, and now we have a war. So how do we prevent this from becoming an actual championship boxing match? By putting Mike Tyson in front of you and having him reach out with his glove and just touch your nose. Just touch it and let you know that if it made full contact, you'd be knocked out. But he just touched it. Now, after giving you every opportunity to defend against it, you had all your best defenses up there, and Mike Tyson still reached out. That's what Iran did. Let's
just
put
visualizing that.
The air base, Nevatim, that was struck, one of three major targets that was struck, is the most heavily defended place on Earth when it comes to anti-ballistic missile defenses. The single most heavily defended place on Earth. America has its most advanced surveillance and targeting radar, AN TPY-2 X-band radar, designed to detect Iranian ballistic missile launches. All right, it's there on the ground near Nevatim. It's tied into the most advanced anti-ballistic missile technology in the world. Israeli Arrow 2, Israeli Arrow 3, Israeli Advanced Patriots, Israeli David Sling missiles, all designed to shoot down Iranian missiles. The American THAAD systems there, integrated, designed to shoot down Iranian missiles. It's the radar is linked in to the entire American ballistic missile defense system globally. So all the satellites that we have over Iran to detect launches are all tied in. Everything's tied in. When we bring in destroyers next to the Israeli shore, those systems are tied into this, all linked. They've trained on this. The most heavily defended point on Earth, specifically designed to defend against Iranian missile attack. The Iranians reached out and touched it not once, not twice, but 5 times with missiles that said, you can't shoot us down. And if we wanted to, we could hit this base 1,000 times. We can hit any spot in Israel anytime we want to with whatever number of missiles we want to. And there's Nothing you can do about it. Now, people are saying, oh, Iran didn't blow the base off. It wasn't meant to. Iran, this wasn't letting Mike Tyson hit you. It was letting you realize that Mike Tyson will punch you anytime Mike Tyson wants to punch you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so that's what happened here. That's what Iran accomplished. And the world has yet to recover from that because we don't want to acknowledge publicly that Iran has deterrence supremacy over Israel and the United States. But look at what the United States did. See, if Iran didn't have this, see, the United States has already learned this lesson. We assassinated Qasem Soleimani, the big Iranian general, back in 2020. Iran responded by putting 10 missiles on an American base in Iraq, the Al-Assad base. And when you look at the base, those 10 missiles hit exactly what they were wanting to hit, center mass. They didn't miss by an inch. They weren't off, but they hit it right dead center. And and Iran gave us plenty of advance notice to withdraw our troops from those buildings so that they didn't kill anybody. So people say, well, the Iranians didn't kill anybody. They weren't trying to. They were simply proving that at any time they want to, those missiles can hit any target in the Middle East where American troops are and kill a whole bunch of people. And there's nothing America could do to stop that. How did that play in? Later on, when Iran shot down a Global Hawk drone over the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump was talking about bombing Iranian air defense sites. And the Pentagon quickly reminded him of the fact that if we do that, Iranian missiles are going to rain down and destroy everything. And there's nothing we can do to stop it. So guess what we didn't do? We didn't bomb Iranian air defense sites. That's called deterrence supremacy. Iran deterred America's actions. And now look what we did with Israel. Yes, we came to the defense of Israel, but we told the Israelis, we're not going to participate in any offensive action against Iran. You're not going to get any help from us. Why? Because we know that if we did help Israel, those Iranian missiles would land on American bases, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. So Iran has done, actually, I believe, the world a huge favor by establishing deterrence supremacy over Israel and the United States, because now, hopefully, we won't lurch towards this kind of general war that leads to economic devastation for all parties involved.
Yeah, and I'll pass it right to you, CJ. I'll let you ask the next question.
Go ahead.
But your point on Iran being successful because the psychological warfare cannot be understated. Because these fascist settler colonialists in Israel, they really do believe they are untouchable. And in a way, they have been for a very long time. But seeing Iran and seeing those missiles, the social media posts that I've seen, the few that I showed you guys on Saturday in the pool in that stream that YouTube wouldn't allow because I was showing you guys this stuff, was the Israeli social media feed freaking the hell out because this aura of invincibility, this Jewish supremacist ideology that they have, that no one can touch them, was shattered for the first time. CJ, was there anything else you wanted to add to this or ask Scott before I move on with anything else?
Yeah. Let me just because he mentioned this was, I just wanted him to get an official comment. Let me bring up this headline here. You mentioned how the U.S. has officially said that U.S. tells Israel it won't join counter-strike on Iran, urges caution. Why do you think that is? Why are they not joining? And what does that say about what America thinks about this conflict? And why would America not want a war with Iran? And then I'll pass it to you, Nick. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the main reason why America doesn't want a war with Iran is that we can't win a war with Iran. We're just not what we used to be. When I fought in Desert Storm back in 1991, that was part of an American military effort that saw 750,000 American troops deployed into that region, along with a tremendous amount of combat capability. Whether you support the war or not, it's not the question. At that time, we had the resources that we could surge forward and build and defeat the world's fourth largest army, the Iraqi army, hands down, wasn't even close. Even in 2003, with our diminished military in a war that I despised and hated and fought against and tried to prevent, we have to acknowledge that the United States came into that fight with the ability to deploy hundreds of thousands troops into the Middle East and have a meaningful impact on the situation on the ground. We can't do that today. We don't have that capability. And we certainly don't have that capability vis-a-vis Iran. I just want to remind people that both Desert Storm and Operation Iraqi Freedom, it used to be called Operation Iraqi Liberation, but when you look at the initials, oil, the brilliant geniuses, in maybe we should call it oil. So they call it, when you look at the those understand we only were able to do that because we were able to land at airports that weren't under attack. We were able to bring our ships with equipment into ports that weren't under attack. If we try to go against Iran, understand that the Iranians will attack everything that comes in their direction. They will sink the majority of the ships before they get to a port. But if they get to the port, that port will be hammered by Iranian missiles. Nothing will get off those ships. Planes will be shot down. But if they land in an airport, they'll be hit on the ground at the airport. The attack will be defeated before it begins because we can't deploy the troops. But even if we could go into ports and there, we don't have the troops to deploy anymore. Our military is a shadow of what it used to be. Overcommitted, undertrained, not underfunded. We spend nearly $1 trillion a year on this military, and that's the irony of it. We spend so much money and we get so little benefit out of it. But the United States can't win a war with Iran. Therefore, we don't want to fight a war with Iran because the consequences of going to war with Iran will destroy us economically. And so that's where we stand on this issue. The United States has told Israel that, first of all, let me also put this out. Israel can't attack Iran without America's help. Now, they can send a couple fighter airplanes in and bomb, and they can fire some missiles off and attack. But all that'll do is trigger an overwhelming Iranian response, which they now have proven they're capable of doing, that will destroy Israel. Israel, in order to carry out a knockout blow against Iran, would have to have the support of the United States. And even with the United States, as I said, we don't have the military capability anymore, so there will be no knockout blow. But for Israeli airplanes to strike Iran on a sustainable basis, they need American refueling aircraft. They need American support aircraft, electronic warfare, suppression of enemy air defense, etc. Without this, the Israelis are going to have to fly F-35s over Jordanian airspace into Iraq with fuel tanks, which means they carry fewer bombs. In order to get into Iran, they have to do a direct route because they can't maneuver. They can't get in a dogfight. They can't do anything because they have no fuel. Every time you move an aircraft, every time you hit acceleration, man, the gas level starts going down. And when you run out of gas in an airplane at 30,000 feet, you're in a lot of trouble. So the Israelis can fly their planes in, but they're going to have to go on a predictable route. They go through Jordan, through Iraq, and they'll be drawn a straight line to the Iranian target, which will be layered with air defense that's going to shoot them down. It's a suicide trip. So Israel can sit there and talk all they want about bombing Iran and doing this to Iran, but without American help, it's going to be a very limited action, one that Israel will probably sustain significant casualties in, one which will not destroy Iran's ability to retaliate, and one which will trigger retaliation that will do significant damage to Israel. So I think by America telling Israel that we're not going to support your attack, it's the way of America saying, Israel, you can't attack. Now, we're not going to tell you you can't attack, but you can't attack without our help, and we're not going to give you that.
Yeah, I want to get your reaction to a few things. There's a lot to break down there, but I have a lot to cover at the same time. So I just want to get your reaction to a few of these things. I'll show you what leaders in the UK, David Cameron and them, are saying. I'm going to show you guys what obviously the Biden administration is saying as well, which is beyond parody. Administration officials saw Iran's attack on Israel Saturday as disproportionate to Israel's strike in Damascus. So Israel, who actually murdered people in the strike, Iran, who didn't murder anyone, they just went after military facilities. But Iran is the aggressor here. So you guys see the ridiculous statement from the Biden administration. Now here's Israel, and now this is the headline I want you guys to respond to because this is hilarious. Hilarious. At the UN, Israel demands Iran be punished. You know, the institution that Israel murdered over 100 of their workers? Murdered UNRWA. Israel literally murdered UN workers, but here they're at the UN demanding that they punish Israel. So sorry for bearing the lead there, but God, I want to pass it to you for your general reaction. And as a question, what's your reaction to the Western leaders and the media in the West claiming what Iran did was highly illegal and disproportionate?
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to second what you're saying about the hypocrisy of Israel and indeed the United Nations for giving Israel a voice. Israel has shown a complete disregard for the United Nations and the rule of international law. And as you pointed out, they've murdered well over 100 UN employees on the ground in Gaza. Yet they want to come to the United Nations and lecture the United Nations. This is a travesty in the extreme. The notion of disproportional response, that means that they don't understand what happened. They can't comprehend, they can't wrap their hands around it. I see a lot of people saying, well, they shot down the drones, they shot down the cruise missiles, they shot down the ballistic missiles, and what got through didn't accomplish anything. That means you have no clue what happened. You do understand that not only did Iran provide the United States with 72 hours advance notice of this strike. There's a secret meeting between Iran and CIA Director Burns in, I think, Qatar or Oman, where the Iranians said, no, we're attacking. And Burns said, well, don't do too much damage. And they said, don't worry about it. But they put it on. And so they were put on notice. When they launched the attack, let me put it this way. If I'm going to overwhelm you with something, I want it to all happen at once. I want everything to come in so that you cannot deal with everything at once. I overwhelmed you. In the military, we call this a time on target event, where I have timed all of the release of my munitions from, these are different munitions with different speeds coming from different ranges. So I sequence everything to release so they all arrive over the target at the same time. That's not what happened. Iran released these drones. The purpose of the drones was to be shot down. But the other purpose of the drones was to tell the Israelis, hey, here we come. Remember that attack we promised? It's happening right now. So
they telegraphed it.
Yeah, if you guys know it's going to take 5 hours for this drone to reach you, so please put everybody in a bunker, get everybody out of harm's way. We don't want to kill anybody. So move. Then they did that. And then the other thing they did is they forced Israel and its allies to spend on average close to $1 million per $20,000 drone. So for every drone they shot down, they spent over $1 million. And the Iranians are going, that's money in the bank, baby. That's money in the bank. We're bankrupting you because we only have so many missiles. Iran can produce a lot more drones than we can produce missiles. So the first thing Iran did is say, hey, we're coming. B, bankrupt yourself. Then they brought in the cruise missiles. Now, the cruise missiles can penetrate deeper. These are going to now trigger the actual points on the ground that are going to be used to shoot down missiles, the ballistic missile defense that I talked about previously. So they see the missiles fire on the ground, and they go, okay, now we have the location of that radar. We have the location of that launch platform. We're tracking it out. Okay, we got all that. Fire the next wave of missiles. They fire that, and they see the other things. They track all that out, and they say, okay, now we want to touch Nevatim. We want to prove that we can take out, air defense systems. We fire our real missiles, which are only a handful. My understanding is that against Nevatim, Iran fired 7 missiles. 5 hit their targets. 2 were shot down. Hey, it's war. You go into a championship fight, Muhammad Ali may beat Joe Frazier, but that doesn't mean that Joe Frazier never hit Muhammad Ali. A championship fight is a championship fight. So Iran fired missiles, and the best best anti-ballistic missile defense system in the world shot down 2 of the 7. 5 hit their targets. That's not what we're being told. We're told that 99% were shot down, but those don't count. Those are about shaping the battlefield. But the results were defined by 7 missiles fired against the most heavily protected spot on Earth, 5 of which hit their targets in precise fashion. That's what happened here. Is that disproportionate? Not at all. It's the most, if it's disproportionate, it's disproportionate in the other way, meaning that Iran had the ability to do so much more damage, to inflict so much more harm, but they opted out of it. To sit
I
there.
thought they would.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Scott, but I thought they would. That's why I said earlier in the stream I didn't give Iran enough credit, because I was like, oh shit, we fucked, because now they're gonna go all in. But once again, we've seen the restraint shown by Iran. I want you to finish your thought, but I'm gonna show you guys this. This is what everyone in the media is not telling you about. You have Israeli government officials going on CNN, Fox News. They're doing a media blitz saying that Iran violated international law. No, they did not. No, they did not. This is in the UN. You have the right to defend yourself. Chapter 51. If a UN nation is attacked, and Israel attacked Iran, so they had the right to retaliate. So this is another example of them not knowing international law. But Scott, I know you. I want to pass to you so you can finish your thought, and I have a few more things I want to show you as well. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I'll just point out, since we're bringing up Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, the actions taken by Iran must be directly related to the threat posed to Iran. Iran struck 3 major sites and several minor sites. The 3 major sites were an intelligence facility in the Golan Heights, which collected the data and transmitted the data about the target in Damascus to the Israeli fighters. So that place was targeted. You know how people are saying that no damage was done? Apparently this site got hit very hard because it's not technically on Israeli soil. It's on occupied Syrian soil in the Golan Heights. And I think the Iranians actually tried to destroy this facility, but we don't know why. Because Israel has prohibited anybody from talking about this. Anybody from talking about this at all. The 2 sites that Iran did hit in Israel were these 2 airfields where they just reached out and touched them. But understand that the aircraft that were involved in the raid on the consulate in Damascus came from these 2 airfields, Nevatim and Ramon, in the southern Negev desert. Both these sites were hit. Iran only hit locations that were directly related to the attack, or ballistic missile defense locations defending these sites. Iran didn't carry out a disproportionate response. They didn't destroy government facilities or military capabilities that had nothing to do with the attack. It was a very tailored, focused, disciplined, proportionate response, but the West won't talk about it.
Yeah, and one more thing I saw this article while I was looking for something else, and I want to show it to you guys because I think it's hilarious. And CJ, feel free to respond to this if you want to as well. This is look at how the media is framing this, and they try and do PR for Joe Biden. As Iran attacks Israel, and I respond to this live, so feel free to let me know if I'm on and off with this. Biden confronts escalating Middle East crisis he had hoped to avoid. Now, am I being a nitpicky asshole when I say this is propaganda garbage? Because at no point has Biden ever moved in a way to prevent a war. Scott, do you have any reaction to this and their general coverage of how Biden been handling this conflict? And I'll pass to you next, CJ, after this.
Look, Biden has done nothing but coddle Israel on this, and coddle Israel in a very dangerous way. Israel is, well, we need to back up before that. On October 6th, the policy of the United States, the number one policy objective of the United States vis-a-vis Israel, wasn't to promote a Palestinian state, wasn't to seek justice for the Palestinian people. It was to promote a normalization of relations between Israel and the Gulf Arab states as part of an economic co-prosperity plan that Biden announced at the G20 summit that summer of 2023. If you remember, he stood up there and talked about an Indian Middle East economic corridor that would link Mumbai, India, with Dubai, through Saudi Arabia to Jordan, to the Haifa port in Israel, on to Greece, to link Asia with Europe through the Middle East corridor. And Israel was going to be a major player in this, that the world was going to be defined by the normalization of Israeli relations with the Gulf Arab countries and Israel's dominant role in building this economic unity. That's what the Biden administration was banking on. They put all of their effort into it. On October 7th, they saw all of that get flushed down the toilet. So the Biden administration has been struggling ever since October 7th to redefine its approach towards Israel. Because in order to buy into this economic co-prosperity, the Biden administration had to hold its nose in some things that stunk, like West Bank settlements, like the ongoing theft of Palestinian land, murder of Palestinian people by Israeli settlers, most of whom come from Brooklyn, New York. So I always refer to them as the Brooklyn Jews, because that's the honest way to refer to them. They're not real Israelis. They're Brooklyn Jews who basically woke up one day in their pathetic existence in the United States and decided that the best thing for them was to go to Israel and steal the land of the Palestinian people in the West Bank. And they're doing that. The Biden administration held their nose on that. This stinks. It's very bad, but we ignored that. We ignored the ongoing plight of the Palestinians in Gaza. We ignored so much about what Israel was doing because we were buying into this myth of economic co-prosperity. So the Biden administration now not only had to readjust on where it wanted to go with Israel, but certain things started to hit them in the face, like the fact that the nation they were supporting as part of this economic co-prosperity was really a maniacal genocidal state whose foundations wasn't to do good, but to commit murder. That a government that bought into biblical notions of Amalek and the slaughter of the seed of Amalek. There's a biblical reference to genocide contained in the Bible, the genocide of a people by the Jews in the name of God that is celebrated every year, the final aspect of this in the religious holiday of Purim by the Jews who celebrate genocide. Now, I'm not saying all Jews are genocidal. What I'm saying is that the right-wing element of Benjamin Netanyahu's government is an element that believes, endorses the biblical notion of genocide and has called for this to happen to the Palestinian people. And the Biden administration had to deal with this reality. And they had to deal with the reality that Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to get the United States involved in a war with Iran. So they've been adjusting to this, playing behind. Biden can say that he's been trying to avoid a war, but what he's not saying is that his incompetence put us on the path towards war. That the reason why he's struggling with the policy is that he's had a bad policy from day one. This is where we're at right now. I can endorse the notion that Biden does not want a war, is not seeking a broader war with Iran. That I believe in. So I can say that he didn't want it, but then to say that he sought to avoid it, how can you avoid that?
That's the part.
When means to support in empowering Israel. The way to have avoided this conflict was to shut Israel down immediately the second they began committing their acts of genocide in Palestine, to say that this will not stand, to immediately cut off funding for Israel, to immediately tell the Israelis that you can't exist without us and you won't exist without us and we won't be there for you if you continue these policies. He waited too long. On this, Biden is guilty of facilitating genocide through inaction.
I'll just put up, and
Oh.
see, I'll pass it to you.
Go ahead.
I just responded to something that Scott Ritter said because I always wanted to squeeze this in one of my streams. Never found the time to do it. And I think it's a good time.
Crazy.
And this is the genocidal culture that you're referring to. I read out loud if you can't see it. If you guys don't know what this is, it's been flowing around online for quite a bit. There's this psychotic Israeli author that wrote a children's book about bombing children in Gaza called Rockets Glow. And that just shows the psychotic mindset of Israelis and why I roll my eyes when everyone blamed Netanyahu, who has been horrible as a statesman, obviously. But when people go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
I have a question for this author. Have you written an epilogue called The Rockets Glow Part 2, Iran's version? Because, my God, could you, the stupidity of what she's saying, because, do unto others as you want done unto you. The golden rule has come back to bite her in the ass. Excuse my language. The rockets glow. Well, Iran put a whole bunch of glow on your ass, woman. What are you going to do about it? This is just stupidity. You embrace violence. Understand there's people out there that will do it better. I was trained early on by Delta Force when I worked with them. When you walk into a bar, just to assume there's at least one person at bar that can kick your ass, and you have no clue who it is, whether it's the little guy in the corner or the fat lady behind the bar or all the people in between. One of them at least can kick your ass, and you have no clue who it is. So for her to sit there and embrace a culture of violence and destruction, well, the tables have turned. Sow the wind, reap the whirlwind, honey. The Iranian missiles came down and showed you the glow, the real glow. How pathetic she is. I
Yeah, fam,
apologize because I don't
no,
want
it's
to
all
be
good.
endorsing violence or endorsing this, but you want to go down that path. I always told people I don't like to fight, but if you want to fight, I'll kick your ass. I mean, I'll
No,
do
I
it.
feel you, brother. I feel you.
Yeah, I
Trust
mean,
me, guys. I've been holding back. I've been holding back stuff I said on YouTube so many times because this is far from an outlier. This last I said, I promise you, I pass to you. This is far from an outlier. There have been countless IDF soldiers taking pictures of children's toys, of lingerie of Palestinian women. Like the barbaric culture, it brings something out of me that I don't like to see, to be honest. like I like to think that I'm peace loving, but honestly, when I see this shit, I think there's only one way we can handle these kind of people. I pass to you, CJ. I won't spam on that.
bring it up to your audience, just so I want them to reflect on this. Hind Rajab was a 6-year-old girl, 6-year-old Palestinian girl. And on January 29th, she, her uncle, her aunt, their 3 children, and her cousin were trying to escape from North Gaza along a corridor that had been opened up by the Israeli army. They were told to get out, so they were getting out. And as they approached the roundabout, the car was taken under fire by the Israeli forces, who shot up a car full of civilians. They killed the uncle, the aunt, their 3 children, and they severely wounded a 15-year-old cousin and Hind Rajab. The 15-year-old cousin got on the phone. Now, let me put this in perspective so everybody understands this. The Israelis have a unit, 8200. It's a communications intercept unit. 8200 listens to every phone call coming out of Gaza. Every single phone call is listened to. And in times of war, they're listening to it real time, which means it's not a computer recording the voices to be listened to later, but they have somebody listening in on the phone call, and they listen to the 15-year-old cousin call and beg for help. And then they directed the tanks to come in and machine gun her to death live while she was on the phone. They have a recording of her screaming as the bullets ripped through her body. Now, the Israelis thought that should have been the end of it. But an hour later, 6-year-old Hind Rajab got on the phone and called for help. 6 years old, got on the phone and called for help. And the Israelis were listening. And she's begging for people to come and save her. So the Palestinians organized with the Israelis to send a paramedic team in an ambulance. They clear the route. The Israelis hand them a map and say, this is the route you drive. The Palestinian crew got on. The whole time, Hind Rajab is on the phone begging for help. She's talking to her mother. She's talking to Red Cross. She's begging for help, but she's saying the tanks are coming closer. I'm scared. The tanks are coming closer. The paramedics got to within 50 meters of the spot. They said, we see the car. The Israelis are listening to the phone call. They know that the paramedics are there. They know the paramedics see her. But as the paramedics get out of the ambulance, they say, we've got green lights dancing on us. That means that the laser beams of the Israeli soldiers are dancing on them. Then the tank round opened up, blew up the vehicle, killed the 2 of them. And then they machine gunned 6-year-old Hind Rajab to death. This is what the Israelis did. Knowing it, they used the 6-year-old girl to lure her in 2 paramedics to commit murder, and they listened to it and they did this. Do not tell me the Israeli soldiers are the most moral part of the most moral army in the world. These are psychopathic, murdering. I can't use the language I want to use, but it's very bad. These are the worst people on the planet. And if you are somebody who has your own children or you have relatives that have children, understand this. They will kill your 6-year-old son and your 6-year-old daughter without hesitation. They snipe them all the time. They murder them all the time because they view anybody who's not a Jew as subhuman, as an animal. They call them human animals and they treat them as such. Get angry, people. Get very angry. Get in the face of the Zionists defending this. This is not time for normal civil discussion. I'm not talking about violence. I'm not promoting violence, but I'm telling you that it's time to shout them down. They don't deserve a voice. These are murderers. The Nazis don't deserve a chance to explain why they killed the Jews in Auschwitz. The Israelis should not be given a chance to explain why they're killing the Palestinians in Gaza. It's genocide, pure and simple.
I'll pass right to you, CJ, but just quick.
Go ahead.
This is why I fuck with Scott Ritter, because this is the energy we need. I'm tired of begging people to bring the proper energy to this conflict, and I've been struggling with it. I've been struggling to stay on YouTube, as you guys see with the Saturday stream. that got immediately removed because I said some harsh truths. But I don't want to take any more of your time. Go ahead, CJ. Go ahead, CJ. Very thought-provoking.
No.
Perfectly said, Scott. Perfectly
No,
said.
that's perfect. I want you to, because we've covered the IDF, and I was trying to think about it. The congressperson, I just remember it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the latest congressperson to say what you were just critiquing, which is that the IDF is the most humane. She was just on CNN speaking about this, saying how they're the most humane. What do you mean? Put conditions. They've already fulfilled everything. Jake Tapper. I don't know if you've seen that interview, but she was speaking to how the IDF in Israel is the most humane military force because they're the only ones that's giving advance notice for this, giving advance notice for that. They're the only ones who's setting up these pathways. She was making the point that no one else does that. And I knew Debbie Wasserman Schultz was a Zionist. I did not know she was an unhinged Zionist. And in the interview, you can tell she was trying to taper down her excitement. She was trying to tamper down because she knows right now it's not a good look, especially in the Democratic Party, to be so forcefully on Netanyahu's side. So you can tell she's trying to temper herself. But she is one of those unhinged Zionists who is saying, even with the totality of the death toll, she is the one saying they're doing their best. They're taking precaution. 30,000 is just a slip up, is basically what she's saying. But unless you have something on this, I did want to transition a little bit. It's still on the issue, but just to get it from the political sort of perspectives. And the reason I'm asking you this, I know you're more on the technical foreign policy side, but I do want to get your opinion on this because I've seen your tweets that you have an opinion on this, the political side of this. And just as the Israel or the massacre and the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza has been very damaging politically to Joe Biden, this being very, Iran sort of hand in hand with the same issue, this is not going to bode well. As this headline says, Biden renewed embrace of Israel threatens to deepen the Democratic divide. So I just wanted to get your broad, general sort of take on these sort of foreign policy missteps affecting him here domestically in the political sphere and him not making any sort of change. Can you speak to how that speaks to U.S. foreign policy and how it's entrenched regardless? And it speaks to also what Nick was saying, how they don't really believe in democracy is going to end with Trump. Otherwise, they would make a shift in policy because this is a supposed representative democracy and because it would be the best thing politically for them to do. But the fact that they're not doing it just speaks to how entrenched the policy positions of the empire are. And if you could speak to any part of that or any part you want to sort of chime in on.
No, I appreciate that. Look, in the lead up before I joined, you guys were having a fascinating discussion about the Black American and the struggle to support Joe Biden and how that was being juxtaposed against Donald Trump. And, how can blacks ever support Donald Trump, implying that no matter what Biden does, you support Biden. And then Biden's going to sit there and stroke you and tell you how much he cares about the black community and how he's going to do right for the black community and all that. And eventually people just have to wake up and say, no, you're a liar, in which those people in the program are doing. So let's now put this to Israel and the issue of Palestine, etc. You have right now, we have battleground states here in America. One of the key battleground states is Michigan. And one of the key demographics in Michigan is the Arab American community in Dearborn, Michigan. And they supported, they put their weight behind Joe Biden in the last election. They helped push Michigan over to his side. But they're not going to do it this time because of his unabashed support for Israel. So Joe Biden now is trying to, is playing, his administration now has been told to massage the message so that they can assuage the the feelings of these voters. But it's the same stupidity. It's the same thing that, you know, I think I may have spoken on this in the past. I don't want to get too far into domestic politics, and I understand a white guy talking about black politics. I'm probably not the right person to do it, but I'm an observer who has watched the Democratic Party use the black community over the years. I'm a long distance observer, but I just see promises made every election cycle that are never fulfilled. And I see that the Democrats, Joe Biden in particular, are all about empowering a certain class of black leadership that has nothing to do with saving the black people and everything to do with empowering white Democrats. And there's terms that I can use that would be deeply insulting, but deeply accurate if I use them to describe people of this nature. And I see the Democrats today under Joe Biden trying to play the same game with the Arab American community, to sit there and stroke them and to lie to them, to assuage their concerns by making false promises. Let's talk about the Palestinian people for a second and how the Biden administration will be the first to condemn Russia for what Russia has done in Ukraine, even though the level of casualties in Ukraine is a fraction of it. Let me give you an example of the most moral army on. Debbie Wasserman Schultz can talk about the Israelis as being the most moral army, but we've all seen the Israelis murder Palestinian civilians. The snipers shoot Palestinian civilians. We've seen them gun down their own people. This is not a moral army. It's an immoral army. Let's go to the Battle of Mariupol, where the Russians, as they approached an apartment complex that had Azov Nazis dug into it, were told that there's 50 to 100 civilians in the basement. Now, normally militaries would just level the basement and say those are collateral casualties. We had no choice. The enemy chose to turn that into a strong point, and we had to take it out. It's in our military interest. But the Russians instead sent their troops across open fields, losing many casualties in the result, to come up to the civilians in the basement, make sure they're okay, and then evacuate them by surrounding them with their own bodies, which absorbed the bullets of the Nazis as they were going out. So to save the civilians, the Russians lost scores of men. And even then, they couldn't level the building because they were told that there were grandparents up on the 3rd floor and the 5th floor, people too old to go to the basement, were upstairs and scared. So the Russians had to assault the building, taking even more casualties in order to save the grandparents in there. That's a moral army. The most moral army on the planet, an army that's willing to give its life in defense of civilians. That's what a moral army is, not this Israeli trash, this Israeli garbage, this Israeli genocidal seed of Amalek annihilation force. You know, the Biden administration doesn't want to call what's going on genocide. And here's the funny thing. They say they're against genocide, but what's happening there isn't. And one of the arguments put out is that even though the Israelis have used Amalek, again, that's biblical reference to genocide. Netanyahu talks about Amalek. The Israeli army talks about annihilating the seed of Amalek, and then they carry out policies that generate 30,000+ dead Gazan civilians. But the people will say it's not genocide because 30,000, while it's a number, isn't 2 million. It's not, it's a small fraction of the total population. How could it be genocide? But my response is this: in the 1940s, the Nazis held the Wannsee meeting, the accord. They sat down, they talked about the final solution. They said, we're going to kill all the Jews, and this is how we're going to do it. So it's like Benjamin Netanyahu citing Amalek. The Nazis said at Wannsee, we're going to kill all the Jews. Then they built the concentration camps, and they started sending the Jews to the concentration camp, just like the Israeli army starts talking about the seed of Amalek about operations. When do we call it genocide? Okay, do we have to wait until it's over and 6 million Jews have been killed to say that's genocide? Or do we say, well, wait a minute, they've only killed 100,000 Jews so far. It's not really genocide. I know they say they want to kill all the Jews, but they haven't, so we don't believe. Is 100,000 enough to call it genocide? Is it 1 million? What number makes it genocide? It's not the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. It's the intent. One Jew being killed by the Nazis after they said we're going to kill all the Jews is proof of intent to commit genocide. One Palestinian being killed by the Israelis after Benjamin Netanyahu likens them to the Alamakites and speaks of annihilating the seed of Amalek, and the army endorses that, is proof of genocidal intent. 30,000 is more than enough to say that it is the intent of the Israelis to annihilate the Palestinian people. It's genocide, but we refuse to acknowledge it. Instead, as you say, we continue to fund it. How do you like the fact that we, the same day that we dropped 35,000 rations using parachutes onto Gaza, 35,000 in a starving population of around 2 million, 35,000 rations, which, by the way, killed 5 people on the ground when they hit the ground. So we ended up killing civilians ourselves. The same day that we do that, we land an airplane delivering thousands of 2,000-pound bombs. So we say we care about the Palestinians. We drop food on them in insufficient quantities, killing them in the process. We say that we're there to help them, but at the same time, we give the Israelis the bombs they need to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. America is a nation that has lost its moral compass, 100%. And I will also say this: I don't want to get too political, but I'm going to, and I apologize if I insult anybody. But if I'm a Black American, if I'm a Hispanic American, if I'm anything other than an elite class white liberal American, you do understand that the ruling class doesn't care about you, that
Absolutely.
you are nothing to them, that they will kill you in a heartbeat. They will allow policies to go forward that will lead to your suffering, and they won't shed a tear. All they want is your vote on election day, and after that time, they don't care about you at all. And playing out live in Technicolor in Gaza right now to the American Arab populations in Dearborn and everywhere else. The United States is about killing Palestinians. That's our entire policy. How to murder them more efficiently, how to help the Israelis do it, and anything else is a lie. Anything else is a lie. So if they're sitting there, if the Democrats are talking about how they're going to help inner city America and help blacks here, it's a lie. They will never help you because your continued poverty empowers them, because they have led you to believe that because of your poverty, you need help. You're looking to them for help, so you'll vote for them so they help you, but they will never help you. Never. Just like they won't help the Palestinians.
Let's show this breakthrough news video. It's kind of informative, so let's play this video here.
Iran's attack on Israel wasn't unprovoked. It's clear that this is the narrative that the US, Israel, and other Western powers want to run with, that Israel was just randomly attacked by Iran. But that's not what happened, and everyone knows that. 2 weeks ago, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Syria and killed one of Iran's top generals. This is basically an act of war. Under the 1961 Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, diplomatic buildings are protected under international law, even in wartime. Yet not a single statement coming out of Western countries even mentions this. For the last 2 weeks, Iran has been telling the world that Israel should be held accountable for this, that they shouldn't just be allowed to bomb embassies and get away with it. And what happened? Nothing. The day after the embassy attack, Russia proposed that the UN Security Council make a joint statement condemning the embassy bombing, and what happened? The US, UK, and France tried to say Iran was to blame. Now these countries are actually putting out statements saying that Iran is trying to sow chaos in the region, that Iran is acting irresponsibly, and that they'll defend Israel and Israel's right to self-defense. Obviously, the country that's blowing up hospitals, schools, churches, mosques, let alone embassies, is the one sowing chaos and acting irresponsibly. Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, and Rishi Sunak haven't all forgotten that Israel bombed Iran's embassy 2 weeks ago. Their statements are deliberate attempts to obscure the truth. And the fact that our leaders are actually trying to convince us that Iran is the aggressor should be highly, highly concerning to everyone. Because Israel is already using this as a pretext for a military operation against Iran. Politicians in Israel are already calling on Israel to carry out an attack on Iran on a scale we've never seen before. And mind you, Israel has wanted war with Iran for decades. They've lobbied our governments to go to war with Iran for decades. And now our leaders are basically rubber stamping Israel's pretext to do it. The question every American needs to ask themselves right now is what this US relationship with Israel is actually worth to you. They seriously want us to back Israel going to war with Iran in a war they're instigating after we just watched them slaughter 13,000 children and engineer a famine in a city of 2 million people. The US could have condemned Israel's embassy attack at any point, but they didn't. The US could have condemned the destruction of every hospital in Gaza, but they didn't. The US could have condemned Israeli leaders comparing Palestinians to animals and calling for Gaza to be turned into a graveyard, but they didn't. Now these people actually want us to follow them into what could very well be a regional or global war to defend the survival of a genocidal ethno-state. What exactly does that say about them?
Yeah, that's a good video from Breakthrough News.